So you've got top international leaders working for you in the US. They're amazing. But how do you keep them there for good? For any multinational company, this isn't just a visa question. It's about locking in your long-term strategy. Right now, your best people are probably here on temporary visas, maybe something like an L1A. And while they're incredibly valuable, that temporary status means the clock is always ticking. It creates a ton of uncertainty. So what's the plan to make that leadership permanent? Well, that's where the EB-1C green card comes in. Think of this as the purpose-built solution. It's a first preference immigrant visa, which means it's in the fast lane, designed specifically to turn your proven international talent into permanent U.S. leaders. This is how you get the stability your company needs to thrive. Now, here's the absolute game changer. The single biggest advantage of the EB-1C is that you get to skip the entire labor certification process. You know, that's usually this long, complicated step where you have to prove there are no U.S. workers available. With this, you avoid all that. It's a massive shortcut. This right here shows a very common, very logical path. An executive often starts with that temporary L1A visa. Then, after the U.S. office has been up and running for at least a year, the company can sponsor them for the EB-1C. It's designed to be a really smooth transition from a temporary role to permanent, stable leadership. Okay, so the big question is, who actually qualifies? The rules are basically split into two parts, one set of requirements for the company and another for the executive or manager. Let's break down exactly what you need. First, for the company, you've got to have that clear corporate link to the foreign office. We're talking a parent company, a subsidiary, or an affiliate. Crucially, the U.S. office can't be brand new. It needs to have been actively doing business for at least 1 year. And of course, the company has to be the one to sponsor the employee. Now for the executive themselves. They need to have worked for the foreign company for at least 1 full year out of the last 3. Super important, both their job abroad and their new job in the U.S. have to be genuinely managerial or executive. And they can't petition for themselves. The company has to drive the process. And listen, when immigration talks about manager and executive, they're not just talking about what's on a business card. These roles have very specific legal definitions. A manager either supervises other professionals or manages a critical function. An executive, on the other hand, sets the strategy and makes the big picture decisions. Getting this distinction right is absolutely crucial for the application. So, what does this process actually look like from start to finish? I know it can seem complex, but when you boil it down, it's a pretty clear step-by-step roadmap to get you there. It all kicks off when the employer files the Form I-140 petition. Once that gets the green light and a visa number is ready, the executive can then formally apply for their green card. The final stages usually involve a quick biometrics appointment for fingerprints and photos, and maybe an interview. Now, you might be wondering, what are the odds? Well, they are very, very good. When a petition is prepared correctly, the approval rate for the EB-1C is over 96%. This is not a long shot. It is one of the most reliable and high-reward pathways you can take. So, how long does this all take? From the moment you file to having the green card in hand, you're typically looking at somewhere between 12 and 24 months. But, and this is a big but, that first major step, the I-140 approval, can be fast-tracked down to just 45 days if you use premium processing. That gives you certainty much, much faster. This quote really just sums it all up perfectly. Getting an EB-1C isn't just about navigating bureaucracy or filling out forms. It's a core strategic decision. It anchors your leadership, it guarantees stability, and it lets your top people focus on growing the business, not on renewing their visas. And that really leads us to the final question you need to ask. When you look at your key players in the United States, are they positioned for the long haul or are they essentially on borrowed time? The EB-1C is an incredibly powerful tool to make sure your most valuable asset, your leadership, is truly built to last.